Hey, well, good afternoon. It's Sunday, April 3rd, and I'm out at Tally Ho today, and I am going to get the bottom anti-fouling paint applied. So as you know, I've done some rudder repair. I did a little bit of grinding on the keel joint, resealed that and put barrier coat on that. And then yesterday I was out and I sanded a good part of the hull. Anywhere there was loose VC17, I tried to sand that down. Or there were places where the boat yard guys didn't really clean the hull very well after I hauled out, and so we had some places that had growth on there that I didn't want to paint over, so it's very hard at this point, so I just sanded it off. So today we have three or four steps to go through. First of all, I'm going to wipe the hull down with acetone real quick just to get any dust and stuff off. It was pretty dusty yesterday. And then then I need to put some tape on the water line here, basically, and then third, paint the boat with VC17. So I'm going to get that process started right now. All right, a quick chat about PPE, which is always important. When I was using the acetone, I had some latex gloves under my work gloves. When I sanded yesterday, I wore a N95 mask, respirator mask. I did have safety glasses on, but that did not do much good, and I ended up with a lot of crap in my eyes later. So today there won't be any dust, but I did bring my safety glasses. The VC17 bottom paint that we're going to use is kind of unique. If I can get the top off one here. It's unique in that part of the paint system, sorry about that, is a bag of copper powder. And I mean, it is very, very fine copper powder. And this stuff gets everywhere. So, hence the PPE today, particularly when I'm trying to mix up the paint. I have a few shortcuts that I'm gonna show you. Probably the most important is the use of some wide mouth container to mix up your paint. So I actually have paint left over from last year. I'm going to probably start with that, actually. I have two little bits left over, so I'm going to probably pour those into my pan and see if they're any good. And then I'll use this wide mouth one to mix the paint. The paint itself is very thin, doesn't need really any agitation much or anything, but the key is the powder. And so what I will try to do is put the powder in the container first, and again, it'll get everywhere, so we gotta be really careful, and then add the epoxy paint over the top of that, and then put the lid on it and shake it up, stir it up after you've shaken it up, and all that kind of stuff. Goes on with a really, really fine foam roller is all you need. Stuff dries very, very quickly. Today it's not very warm, so that's kind of good from a pot life perspective, but normally this stuff dries very, very quick, and all I do is dump little bits of it into my pan while I'm rolling it on. we'll see how it is today since it's kind of cool. But let me get everything set up and ready to mix the paint. Okay, well, I was off camera for a little bit. I ended up dumping these leftovers into the pan and decided to do a quick coat on the rudder and the keel joint, both of those that had barrier coat on it. And I still had enough paint, so I decided, well, let's hit an extra coat at the water line. So I've gone around the boat, just, you know, the top 8 inches or so, particularly up around the bow. Things get rubbed off, I think, more there than any place. And this way I'll have an extra coat at the water line. I did the keel joint there that was raw barrier coat. And I still had some paint left over, so I came back and did a second coat on the rudder. So that's 2 coats so far. This stuff dries extremely fast, so I finished putting that last coat on about 3 minutes ago. And it's not all dry, but it's quite dry. I mean, I can touch that and get nothing on my glove. Now there's a few splotches where it's a little bit thicker and it hasn't dried yet, but the stuff dries very, very fast. So now let's mix up a quart of this stuff and I'll show you what we're dealing with. Okay, so I'm hiding behind my truck, trying to get out of the wind as much as possible. And I'm getting ready to cut open this bag of copper. You can see the copper dust flying out of the bag, out of the hope you can see that anyway. I mean, it's so powdery, it almost flows like a liquid. It's hard to get out of the bag, actually. Opened it up a little bit more to see if I can get it all to come out. I've got a garbage bag here ready to put the nasty stuff in. Alright, once the powder's in there, then you're just opening up your can of epoxy paint, dumping that in. Like I said, this stuff is very easy to pour. Doesn't even need stirring. Then I'm going to put my lid on, start shaking. I do have a stir stick here. Used. Just to make sure I got it all off the bottom. Yep, looks good. Plus there was a little bit of crud on the bottom from sitting out for a year, so this is good. We'll get her all stirred up. And that's it. VC17 is ready to apply. So then what I do is I just pour little bits in this roller pan at a time. I take the jug with me. I'll show you up here, I guess. My GoPro's getting all dirty. I'll show you a little bit of how I do it up here. So it goes on really easy, fast, thin. You don't want to overwork it because it will kind of peel it off a little bit. You don't want to paint over your transducers and stuff. All right, and you notice I have jack stands in the way. I am not going to move the jack stands today. I have done that in the past and the marina frowns on it, so I won't do it today. What I'll do instead is I will keep some paint made up in the jar, and the day that I launch, because this stuff dries so fast, once they lift her up in the sling and pull the jack stands out from under her, I'll be able to just brush on the paint. Hey! Something else you want to be aware of is if you have any kind of grounding hardware on your boat, you don't want to paint over it. So this dyno plate is bolted to the keel, and the keel of course is grounded to, everything else is grounded out to the keel for lightning protection. So you don't want to paint over that because that's where the electricity is supposed to dissipate out into the water. So I sanded that thing down a bit because it did have a fair amount of paint on it, and try hard not to paint over it now. All right, I'm gonna turn the camera off for a bit because I got to get cranking here, try to finish this up. There's another thing you don't want to paint over your speed wheel. Right. All right, well, bottom paint is done. So we use VC17. That's what I've been using on the Great Lakes here for a long time. It goes on real thin. It's a copper-based anti-fouling paint. Doesn't need to be sanded generally or removed. I did sand some this year just because it was a little flaky in some spots due to probably poor application by me in the past. And I got 3 coats on the rudder. Remember, that was raw fiberglass and barrier coat after a repair, so that's all done. And I got 2 coats on the keel joint where I had ground that out a little bit, resealed it, and barrier coated that, so that's good. She looks pretty nice. So all that's left for me to do right now is peel this tape off. You don't want to leave that on there too terribly long. And then that job will be done for the season. We'll check in with you later. These are new through holes from last year. I don't want to get paint on them. The old ones were plastic. Those are stainless steel. Well, there's a stainless steel cover over it. Really, it's still plastic. And like I said, I need to come back and do a little cleanup of the white strip. I actually need to do a lot more than that. Try to buff out all those dark spots, wax it maybe, and all that kind of stuff. But this is going to be it for today.